Live from Rackspace headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. This is another episode of Cloud Talk Live. Folks, my name is Jeff DeVerter, Chief Technology Evangelist. I'm here to spend the next while with you. All right, well, welcome to another Tuesday. I haven't been out on Main Street here in a while. Normally, I'm parked down that way when I'm here in the castle. But today I thought, let's change the view up a little bit. I also have to present in a room just back that way. So as soon as we're done, that gives me a chance to run out there. Well, you know the rules, you know the routine around here if you've come around for a while. In fact, I had some fancy slides that told you all the stuff. You want to introduce yourself, folks. Let me go back to that a little bit just so you don't forget in case you didn't see it on the screen. I would love for you to introduce yourself, folks. Tell me who you are. Tell me where in the world you are. There it is. Look at that coming across the bottom of the screen. Do you know how I do all this fancy stuff? One of these days, I'll tell you. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, no matter how you have found us. And also, if you want to get a hold of us, just send an email over to solve@rackspace.com. I've gotten notes from several of you over the, past 2.5 years that we've done this. It's pretty incredible how long we've done it. But I would love to hear from you. And hey, India, first one out. Actually, Megan was from San Antonio, but she's always here. And we're so glad to have her. Folks, it's going to be a great episode this morning. Before we get into it, I'd love to encourage you to subscribe to the Cloud Talk podcast. You can find that podcast anywhere where you find any of the podcasts. You can see it down there on the screen, whether it's Amazon Music, Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, all of the places you can find us. So the audio from these live events shows up there, and we're starting to record some new episodes of audio only. So unless you're subscribed, you're not going to get those. Hey, if you missed it last week, we almost got hit in the head by that thing. We had the Cloud Talk Live Summit. It was all about AI and ML. We did it from the event center here at Rackspace. I would love for you to go check that out if you haven't already. If you weren't there live last week, you can find it over in the Rackspace YouTube. You can find it here in LinkedIn. Just do a search for hashtag Cloud Talk Live and you'll find it. And check that out. All right. Well, to actually turn this off for a second, before we bring Indra up, I've got to acknowledge some of the great folks who are showing up here in the chat room and acknowledging yourself, just like I asked you to do. So, Susan, I'm glad you're here. I haven't seen you in a while. If you're in San Antonio, she runs a what's called Firecat Studio, a UX and usability agency. Susan, this episode is exactly for you. Maya from Charlotte, glad you're here. Adrian from Brazil, lovely. Sarah, San Antonio. Austin is here. Rakshit, glad that you were here. Julia, of course, and then India. So everyone, keep introducing yourselves. We are going international this morning, not just in the audience, but I have brought along Indra Burkhart. Now, Indra works for us here at Rackspace, but interestingly enough, not here at Rackspace, but in Rackspace. And I am flailing my arms, pointing towards Hamburg, Germany. So joining us from Hamburg, Germany this morning is Indra Burkhart. Indra, come on up on stage here and welcome yourself. Hey, there you are.
Hi. Happy
so
to
glad
be
that
here.
you're here. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Yeah, thank you to have me.
Now, being behind a camera is nothing new to you. You run a very successful YouTube channel about all the stuff we're talking about today. But there is something that's somewhat new, is welcome to the English language of doing a live stream, your first live stream in English.
Yes. So bear with me if I struggle for words.
Well, I'm so glad we chose not to do this in German because that would have been a very big struggle. It has been a long time since 10th grade German class. And yes, I did take German in high school, and I don't remember much. I can say hello in a few of those words, but that's unfortunately the extent of it.
Yeah, I can relate. Same with French with me.
So you work for us here at Rackspace. Tell us exactly what your job is, because we're going to unpack your career a little bit and talk about how you got to where you are.
So I'm working at the professional service team here at our EMEA division, basically. So I mostly have German customers, but I also have some in the UK. And my team is very international. So my core team is also based in UK, Poland, India. So that's also what I totally love about Rackspace, being so international. And so I work as a consultant, basically, mainly for user experience and Microsoft 365. So I focus on the whole Power Platform, which we are also going to talk about today.
We are. And, when I think about, user design and such, I think of it just because of my background. I think of it so much through the lens of, where's my phone? Through, the apps that we're using and how, or that web pages we're going to, or the programs that are running on my computer. But for you, user design you even took a very tactile, real world type of an example. Let's talk about that job for a little bit that you had, as you work through your career.
Yeah, so before I joined Rackspace, I was also a full-time consultant in user experience, and I worked on a wide range of different company types. So for example, I also did something for the automotive industry, doing usability tests in a simulator, testing if people were able to figure out what they have to press in their car. And I mean, it's a very crucial task, because if you don't understand what your car is telling you, it could risk your life.
Very true. We get frustrated with our phones or with a web page and we can't find what we're looking for, but that takes on a whole new dimension when we're, running down the road at higher speed. So that gets really hard. But if we go back even a little farther, I mean, how did you come to even think, user design, that's a career for you?
Yeah, before fully emerging into UX, I was a game designer. That is also what I studied. So I wanted to do something entertaining, but while I was doing stuff for entertainment, I found out that it's even more interesting to do something where people really struggle with and make their life maybe a little bit better.
That's incredible. And so game design, everybody kind of fantasizes about, game design must be very, illustrious. It's very interesting. But everything I read sounds like it's pretty high pressure.
Yeah, you have a really tight update schedule. So we had to release a new feature every 2 weeks. So that was a little bit stressful. And I mean, it's also a job in IT. The only thing is that you might discuss stuff that is more unrealistic. So like lightning shooting porks or whatever, but the rest is still IT.
It's still a computer back in there. Now, Susan, who has, I've known for, gosh, Susan, that was back at USAA. So that was a lot of years ago. But she runs a community here in San Antonio, all around, with speakers and mentors, as you can see on the screen here, project-based learning, all sorts of events. So if you are in this career field, especially geographically in the area, there is an address to learn more. Susan, do you stream those as well, or do you? Are they all live events? You can just comment down below. I need to get you on the program so we can just talk all about it. My apologies if that hasn't happened. But eventually, Indra, you move from designing cool things inside of cars and cool games and features inside of games, and you discover this thing called Office 365. And for that, you felt like, as you told me, you've come home. Why did that resonate so well?
The way of modern work, so being very transparent, working at synchronous on a file, and working as a team really is the way I want to work. I always work like that, and Microsoft gave me the tools for my work needs, basically. So I first fell in love with Teams because it was just giving me the tools that I needed. And but then when you work with the Microsoft tools, you soon probably figure out that they're not fulfilling 100% of your need, because I mean, they have to cater for any company.
Yeah, I always call it the beauty, the blessing and the curse. They'll give you this tool that has so much capability, but they'll get you 80% there and just leave you hanging.
Yeah, but that's where the Power Platform shines. And this is why I love this, because I mean, we still have the need to have tools for our fit, for our processes. And this is now basically what I do. I help my customers figure out what are their processes, what are their needs, and I build something that fits their need, but still within the Microsoft universe.
That's really interesting, because when you think about it, folks, regardless of what your career is, if you're working inside of a larger organization, even medium sized, in some cases, most cases, even smaller organizations, Microsoft 365 is somehow powering things in the background, even if it's just from an exchange point of view. but that's where you things kind of started. So it becomes Exchange, and then Word's there, and Excel's there, and files shares are there, and now you've got a business process that you're trying to figure out. And this is really where that Power Platform comes together, and that's how do you stitch together that business experience utilizing these Microsoft tools. And really then, as we think about user experiences, what is that user experience of how do I do my job? It doesn't matter necessarily, Indra, right, what that job is. You know, you could be designing cars, you could be in finance, you could be in marketing, you could be in HR, but there's still a process. Everything falls back to a process. You could be, you know, when you finish your piece, generally speaking, you're not done with it. Somebody else is going to do a thing, and then somebody else is going to do a thing, and then maybe 3 people are working on it in the same time. So Indra, when we think about user experience from a workflow point of view, how does, you know, what you're doing help solve for making that a better experience?
Yeah, I'm discussing with the teams firsthand what are they actually doing, and then I structure this into requirements. So I really understand what needs to be done. To not stick too much to the current process, because often processes develop and evolve over time, and they're not most of the time the most efficient ones. And so we want to detach from the current situation a little bit and build something new, which is still compliant. And yeah, we are most of the time finding that with automations or maybe a little app or a combination. So
Yeah.
there are different options.
Well, what you said there is really important, and it applies not just to when we think about our workflow or the things that we're doing with Office 365, but it really has to do with this whole cloud transformation conversation. When we think about taking our applications, our servers, and putting them maybe in a next generation private cloud, or even out into, let's say very Microsofty here, out into Azure. You know, we don't want to just lift and shift those things, because it is an opportunity to reinvent. And I told Indra this story when we were prepping for this. And I tell customers this story all the time. And back in my early days, you know, I was very much the Microsoft guy, you know, because I had back in, it would have been SharePoint 2003 is when I was introduced to it. I was working for a company called World Savings here in San Antonio, Texas. And very often, even with as rudimentary as task management and workflow management was in those early days, it still existed there. And a lot of it brought the ability to give visibility to processes where they hadn't really existed before in the hands of the end users, very much democratizing that. Well, a story that would get repeated over and over is I would be, you know, some VP would come knock on my fictitious door at my cubicle and say, you know, hey, Jeff, we got this process. We want you to get some of your SharePoint people to help automate this process. And I say, wonderful, let's do it. Let's get everybody in a conference room, and then we can have a meeting and kick this thing off. And he said, great, I'll get everybody there. And he would do introductions, or she would do introductions in the very beginning, and then hand it over to me, and I would kind of introduce the process in just a couple of quick minutes. And I would say, to start, here's this lovely whiteboard. Now, what I want you to do, who really knows this process? And some reluctant person would sheepishly raise their hand, and they would stand up. They'd spend 5 or so minutes in writing out that process. And immediately the room erupts. And people go, no, that part over there, this is how we do it. And some say, no, that part over there is totally wrong. We haven't done that since 5 years ago. And the room would erupt into scribbles and erases and trying to figure out. And that just gets back to the point, the fact that these processes that are running inside of businesses have been there in some cases for decades, and they've been taped on top of, they've been scribbled on, just as we think about the analogy of the whiteboard. And so when you're automating these processes in new tools like inside of the Power Platform, it gives you a chance to reinvent the process the way it should be done, not the way it was done. That was good and it served a time, but now we're going to redo that stuff. So Indra, it gets back to the point of when getting into the requirements of creating one of these, you know, the hardest part in transformation is the people part of the transformation. What's your experience been like in that area?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is getting everyone to the table, because I mean, everyone is busy and we want to free them of their busyness by automating it, but still it is hard because they're still stuck in it. And understanding at the beginning why we are doing this, because often they say, but we have this process and it is working. Why
And it
do we need
works.
to reinvent it?
Why are you meddling with our stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And then I start asking questions and questions and questions, and I can ask them because I have no clue. Often I really have no clue about the process,
Yeah.
and that is very beneficial. And then they explain things to me, and then they were like, yeah, I don't know why this is that way.
That's every time it always comes back to you have to keep, because you keep asking those clarifying questions. Why? And eventually you get to a point of going, I have no idea. It's the way we've always done it, which is the worst phrase in technology. Why are we doing it this way? It's the way I was taught. It's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, but it's still painful for a lot of people to let go of this mindset of we do it like we always did it. And that is the change. That is the change management everyone is talking about, what we need to do in order to really do modern work and really accept this new technology. But yeah, it's worthwhile.
Now, one of the things I get excited about is when in a project like this that I would have done over the years is you'll find somebody really gravitates in and they're like, oh, I can be a champion for this change. And they then start to really get into the technology and they think, maybe doing this business that I had been doing for a long time isn't what I want to do. Maybe I want to get involved in that change. Have you had experiences where people have really seen a career change ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, of course, especially with PowerPlatform, I see so many people doing that full time now because it is also a very diverse field. And people, I mean, they say it's a low code, no code solution. So they try to get everyone in so that not only the IT people do this, but the people who really knows the process, which is a really clever way because IT cannot automate every process that is out there. But that also means people start falling in love with building Power Apps.
That's right. They really do. And that's one of the things that I think is so important as well, is to find those champions inside of the business to really be the champion for change. Because there's nobody who can do the job better. They bring in experts like you, Indra, because you know the tools and technology. You know how to listen to what a process is and electrify, digitize that process. But it would be so much more efficient if those folks knew the generalities of the tools, knew the potentials of the tools, could get it 50 or 60 or 70% there, and then bring in an expert like yourself to be able to coach and take it the rest of the way for those pieces where they get stuck. And that's where a lot of people who are resistant to change, and why they're resistant to change, because they think, well, what's happening to my job? Indra's got these fancy tools. What am I going to do for my job? Well, maybe you should get involved in the fancy tools. I use an example oftentimes about how you can take somebody who is a very much what we would call here in the United States a minimum wage type person, an hourly wage, not a full-time employee. And you can turn them into a person in high demand transformation person just by getting them excited about the low code capabilities. And they can have quite a career with some pretty strong career surety and knowing that they've always got some work to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they are the people who've been there for years, are the ones who really know every company their company by heart. And they are also most likely to invent new ideas for the company. But if they do the job that they've done for years, they don't have time to do that. So if they start building new things, then maybe the company is also progressing. And that's ultimately what we want.
Yeah, one of the flagship stories that Microsoft likes to tell, and I've forgotten the gentleman's name, but it works at Heathrow Airport, and I'm sure you know the story as a Windows person, but I think he was doing security for them, effectively our TSA, and thought, well, this is not a good process, and he built a PowerPlatform app for it, and now he runs all PowerPlatform things for all of Heathrow and has quite a career, and Microsoft has advertised him quite well. But that's the potential of what is available literally to everyone, and there's so much great training available. And I know if you speak German, there is a great channel you could go to. Indra, if people are interested in learning more and speak German or want to exercise their German and learn more, you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yes, that's true. But my channel is focusing mainly on UX part. So the whole understanding users, testing your ideas with users, designing new solutions. not so much on the PowerPlatform part at the moment. But yeah, that's a whole
But it
new.
absolutely applies, because you can't go in and just take the PowerPlatform and think you can develop those things in a vacuum. I mean, you have to have the user involved. You have to have an experience that makes people want to use the app and not go back to their paper-based process that they have done for years.
Yeah, and also you can apply your UX skills also into other hyperscalers. So if you have a no-code, low-code solution in AWS, then you still need UX skills.
That's exactly right. It is technology independent. So Indra, here we are at the beginning of April. We were talking before about how spring has finally shown up in Hamburg, even though it was chilly this morning. And the first Tuesday of every month here is Women in Tech Tuesday, which is why we also sort of aligned you to be here and shine a light on all of the work that you've done in your career and your experience. So we're so grateful that you're here. And but there is a question that I like to ask a lot of the women who come on the program, because a career in technology, it tends to be a career that is male dominated. And so I will get lots of communication back from folks going, hey, I love this episode. It's very encouraging for women. I'm going to go home and show it to my 12, 13, 14-year-old daughters so that they can, see what somebody who has accomplished some great things have done. So I asked the question maybe in two ways. The first is, if you could give some advice to those young girls, young women who are, starting to think about what their career might be as they get farther in their education, or even I also spin the question this way and say, if you could talk to 12-year-old Indra, what advice would you have for yourself back when you were 12, 13, 14 years old to help you in your career?
I would say being a nerd is cool.
I love that.
Because I always was one, and I always hided my love for pop culture and everything, and I started embracing it when I went to uni, and I saw that so many other people out there were like me, starting going to Comic Cons and everything, and I wish I would have celebrated this more as a teenager.
Well, it's a lot more popular these days as well. And my camera's falling
Sure.
over. Great. It's not an earthquake in San Antonio. Don't worry, everybody. All right. Well, that is fantastic advice. I love that. Thank you so much for it. Well, Indra, thank you for being on the program today. Thank you for all the hard work that you do for us here at Rackspace. And I would love to have you back on when our schedules align.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that I could bring some insights to those watching.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I need to get you connected to Susan Price here in San Antonio, and they do some amazing things here. Maybe you can help her out, or she can help you.
Definitely.
All right, everybody. That is going to do it for everything we have going on there. So let me push the little button I got right here. There we go. Let's talk about next week for a second. Next week is we haven't done this one in a little while, and we have a group here in Rackspace called The Next Gen. It is a resource group here, and it is all about bringing in those young rackers that work here at Rackspace and learning from them and their very young careers in technology, with some folks who really don't even make the role in technology. They're support folks, whether they're in marketing, whether they're in social, whether they're in other areas. So next week, we've got Julia, we got Louise, we got DeVay and Megan who are going to be on, and it is going to be a great conversation. We haven't had a larger group like this in a while. I hope that you will set your alarms for next Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. And I'll look forward to seeing you there. Well, I think that is going to actually do it for us here today, folks. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. We are back, as I mentioned, next Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. And in the meantime, go check out the Cloud Talk Live Summit, which was all about AI and ML that we did last week. All right, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next week.